From the moment Olivia entered my life as my stepmom, I felt a strange, almost dangerous tension every time her gaze lingered on me. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a current of something forbidden that grew stronger each day my dad wasn't home. Her smile wasn't just warm anymore, it was calculated. Her touch is delicate but different, and the air around us seemed to pulse with an energy neither of us could ignore. After my dad remarried, life at home shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. Initially, I struggled to process how I felt about this new dynamic. Olivia was graceful, kind, and clearly everything my dad needed after years of solitude. Yet, the more I observed her, the more I couldn't shake the unsettling thought that something deeper was at play. The tension began subtly, as if we were walking a fine line between what was appropriate and what was forbidden. My dad often worked long hours, leaving the house eerily quiet and devoid of sound. Olivia would handle the household chores, cooking and cleaning as any wife would. But the way she moved, the way her gaze would catch mine in fleeting moments, stirred something within me that I couldn't suppress. I tried to dismiss it, reasoning that it was simply my own imagination playing tricks on me. However, no matter how hard I fought to ignore it, the pull toward her grew more intense. One evening, my dad was away on a business trip, leaving just the two of us. The house was still, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floors beneath our feet. Olivia, sensing the stillness, suggested we watch a movie together, and despite my initial reservations, I agreed. We settled onto the couch, attempting to maintain a comfortable distance, though the quiet between us was thick with unspoken emotions. As the film began, I found it impossible to focus. Her presence was more palpable than the scenes flashing before us, and her mere touch sent a jolt through my entire body. Minutes into the film, I felt her leg brush gently against mine, and my breath hitched. The subtle contact ignited something deep within me, a sensation I couldn't ignore. Olivia didn't speak, but her body language spoke volumes, deliberate, calculated, testing the boundaries of what was acceptable. My pulse quickened with every move she made. She shifted closer, her arm resting casually over the back of the couch, her fingers lightly grazing my neck. It was also faint, yet it left a trail of goosebumps in its wake. I struggled to keep my thoughts from spinning out of control, but it was futile. The tension between us thickened with each passing moment, and I couldn't help but respond to the irresistible pull she exerted. The movie ended, leaving a profound silence hanging between us. Olivia turned toward me, her eyes locking onto mine in the dim glow of the room. Her smile was soft, almost teasing, and her voice was a low murmur. "It's nice having the house to ourselves, isn't it?" she said, her breath brushing my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. I nodded, unable to trust my voice, overwhelmed by the storm of emotions swirling inside me. She leaned in further, her leg now fully pressed against mine, her fingers brushing deliberately against my arm. "You've grown so much," she whispered, her voice a delicate blend of admiration and something deeper. Her gaze never wavered, and it sent an electric thrill through me. In that moment, I barely recognized the shy boy who had first met her when my dad married her. The way she looked at me was more than casual, it was hungry, intense, and filled with desire. My breath caught, my heart pounding against my chest. The air between us felt thick, suffocating in its intensity. Olivia leaned in again, her lips hovering close to mine, her breath warm and steady. "There's something about you," she said softly, her fingers trailing down my arm, leaving behind a trail of heat that made my skin tingle. "Something I can't stop thinking about." Before I could process my thoughts, she kissed me, a kiss soft at first, a tentative exploration that tested the boundaries. I could have pulled away, but I didn't. Her lips moved against mine with a quiet intensity, and soon, the kiss deepened. Her hands moved to my face, her touch both gentle and commanding. I responded instinctively, my hand slipping to her waist, holding her closely. The warmth of her body against mine was intoxicating, and the world outside ceased to exist as everything within me consumed her touch. Her fingers moved to the hem of my shirt, pulling it off slowly, Deliberately, her hands traced the contours of my chest with an almost reverent touch, every brush of skin against skin sending waves of pleasure surging through me. Her lips followed the path her fingers had carved, leaving a fiery trail of kisses in their wake. The sensations were overwhelming, each moment feeling more intimate, more consuming than the last. Every kiss deepened, every touch intensified, and I was lost in the torrent of feeling. I could barely think. My mind was a haze of pleasure and desire. Olivia was everywhere, her scent, her warmth, her touch, and it all felt so natural, so right. She explored my body with a hunger that mirrored my own, her hands moving with a fluid grace that mirrored her control. Time melted away as we gave in to our desires, each movement crafted to deepen our connection, to lose ourselves in the moment. The tension between us grew unbearable, yet neither of us rushed to break it. We moved slowly, savoring each touch, every kiss prolonging the inevitable, despite knowing the consequences, knowing that this could never truly be. We couldn't bring ourselves to stop. In that brief time, we were consumed by something raw, something beautiful, and it felt like the most natural, most authentic thing we had ever known. Each movement pulled us closer to the edge, yet never quite pushed us over. It was as if we were dancing delicately along the boundary, teasing it, testing its limits, but never fully surrendering to the fall. Every breath we took heightened the anticipation, building with intensity until it became almost unbearable. The air between us was thick with desire, so palpable that it seemed to crackle with every touch, every glance exchanged. Her hands descended slowly, tracing patterns along my skin with a deliberate, almost hypnotic touch. Each caress was gentle yet intense, a blend of tenderness and yearning that spoke of a connection far deeper than mere physical attraction. Her lips followed, pressing against every inch of my body with soft, fleeting kisses, the warmth of her breath lingering like a ghostly echo. The heat between us was overwhelming, suffocating in the most exquisite way. We were lost in each other, consumed by the unspoken need that had been simmering just beneath the surface for what felt like an eternity. I wasn't prepared for this, none of it. Yet, as her hands continued to explore my body and her lips claimed mine again and again, I found that none of it truly mattered. The world outside ceased to exist, leaving only the sensations of her skin against mine, the way her body fit perfectly with mine, as though it had always been meant to be this way. Each passing moment heightened the tension, making it harder to distinguish reality from the dream we were immersed in. We moved carefully, savoring every second. Each touch extended just beyond what was comfortable, prolonging the pleasure until it became almost unbearable. Yet, we didn't stop. Neither of us wanted it to end. It was a night that would mark a turning point, a night etched into memory where boundaries blurred, lines were crossed, and nothing could ever be the same again. In that moment, however, none of it mattered. All that existed was the warmth of her body, the way her breath hitched as my fingers traced her skin, the heat that radiated between us, drawing us closer still. Each kiss felt heavier, more profound, as though each touch spoke volumes. Every movement sent a ripple of intensity through our connected souls. I could feel her heartbeat, rapid and steady, mirroring my own, as if they had become one in rhythm. Her hands became bolder, her touch more urgent as the moments passed. Her nails grazed my skin just enough to make me shiver beneath her touch. Olivia's breath was hot against my neck, a whispering flame that ignited the desire within me with each deliberate motion she made. She took control, guiding us through this uncharted territory with an effortless confidence that left me breathless. Without a word, she shifted, straddling me, her body pressing firmly against mine, her gaze locked with mine. And in that shared moment, there was a perfect stillness, a heavy, tangible silence filled with the sound of our breathing, the quiet intimacy that spoke louder than any words ever could. Her lips parted ever so slightly, her voice a sultry whisper. "Do you want this?" she asked, her tone teasing yet knowing, as if the answer was already evident. I couldn't form words, my throat was dry, my breath caught in my chest. Instead, I nodded, my hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. The need between us was undeniable, electric each touch, each fleeting caress, driving us toward the edge. Her lips returned to mine, fierce and unrelenting this time, as though we both were starved for the connection, desperate to explore every inch of what we had created. My hands traced her back, feeling the softness of her skin, savoring the smooth curves beneath my fingertips. She arched into my touch, her body responding instinctively, slowly, with a precision that intensified every sensation. Her fingers moved down my chest, the touch delicate yet powerful, sending thrills racing through my body, pushing us both further into the unknown through her. She teased me, drawing out every reaction with a deliberate ease that left me spellbound. Each touch, each whisper ignited a fire deep within me, making it impossible to resist the pull of her presence. Her fingers slid lower, teasing yet tantalizing, igniting a pulse that raced through my body. My breath hitched as her warmth enveloped me, every shiver amplifying the ache for more of her, more of the connection that seemed to transcend reality. Olivia's lips traveled down my neck, her breath a soft, sensual caress against my skin. With each kiss, a deeper intimacy formed, weaving its way into the very essence of my being. The tension between us grew, electric and unbearable, as her touch became an exploration, each movement a revelation of desire. I could feel my heart pounding in sync with hers, the anticipation mounting with every second as her hands moved closer to the waistband of my pants. Time seemed to freeze in those moments. Her gaze locked on mine, consuming every detail. There was something primal, something raw in the way she commanded the moment, leaving me powerless to resist the unfolding intensity. Slowly, Olivia leaned back, her fingers trailing down my legs as she removed the remaining fabric. The vulnerability was profound, more than I had ever known, more than I had ever been exposed to. Yet, the sensation was electrifying, each touch and gaze affirming a connection that defied reason. Her eyes, dark with desire, explored every inch of my body, as if committing the moment to memory, and then, as if reading my thoughts, she began to undress herself, piece by piece. Every movement was deliberate, sensual, revealing more of her soft, flawless skin until nothing was left but the intimate reality of our union. The dim light illuminated her form, highlighting her beauty in a way that was almost too much to bear. Her movements were slow, deliberate, creating a crescendo of desire that coursed through my veins. My breath caught with every shift, every caress. She stood before me, a goddess of yearning and passion, her eyes locked on mine, her presence overwhelming. When she finally moved toward me again, her body pressed against mine with a heat that seemed to consume everything. Her touch, her breath, her whispers, each was a promise of more, an unspoken contract that we were bound to fulfill. The moment was electric, raw, and addictive. Every movement fueled the fire. Every kiss heightened the intensity until it became impossible to ignore the crescendo that was building. Her hands found my chest, pushing me gently against the couch as she took control. Her confidence, her sensual grace, left me breathless, completely surrendered to the experience. She guided us effortlessly, her movements precise yet sensual, designed to extend the pleasure without breaking the tension. The room was filled with the heat of our bodies, the scent of desire, and the sound of our ragged breaths, whispering my name once more. Olivia's voice was a melody of passion, soft, demanding, and full of need. Her hips moved with a rhythm that spoke of urgency and indulgence, driving us both to the brink of ecstasy. The pleasure built with every movement, every touch, and yet, we still held back, savoring the moments that stretched into eternity. The intensity reached its peak, a powerful climax that washed over us like a tidal wave. We moved together, perfectly synchronized, driven by the unstoppable force of our desire. The sensations overwhelmed us, leaving us gasping and trembling as we rode the waves of pleasure. The experience was unlike anything I had ever known, intense, consuming, and utterly exhilarating. When it finally subsided, we lay together, bodies entwined in the aftermath. The silence was profound, broken only by our heavy breaths, still caught in the aftermath of the whirlwind we had created. The warmth between us lingered, But it was not suffocating, rather. It was a gentle reminder of the depth of what had just transpired. Olivia pressed a soft kiss to my lips, her fingers tracing the contours of my face as she whispered, "I wasn't prepared for this either." A smile formed on my lips, pulling her closer once more, unwilling to let the moment slip away. Because, despite the impossibility of what we shared, nothing else mattered in that timeless, fleeting moment.